welcome back to War Geordie's Wafter. This is Kriegschmidt, and I'm here for another brief army introduction video. Please excuse my voice. I don't have COVID, but I do have a bit of a nasty chest infection, and that's why I've got my super special, sexy Barry White voice on just for you. So just sit back and relax and enjoy the rumble. Anyhow, this is my Warriors of the Dark Gods army introduction video. First of all, I'm just going to give you an overview shot of the whole army. So here they are. There's a few things to say about the theme in terms of the paint job, the choice of units, how they're modeled, stuff like that. But first, I'd kind of urge you to go and check out the work of a guy on the 9th Age forum called Jimmy Grill. That's his username, just one word, Jimmy Grill. He's running, I don't know if it's finished now, but he was running a fantastic Warriors of the Dark Gods modeling thread. He openly says his attitude to model kits is that they are boxes full of parts, and when he decides he wants to make a unit, he basically just raids his parts collection, digs out his modeling putty, and just unleashes his imagination. And it really is a fantastic army he's created. I take my hat off to his imagination and the skill with which he's made his units. One of the reasons that I say this is partly because you should just go and have a look, it's fucking cool, but also because it's a very different army from mine, and that helps to kind of I think the contrast helps to kind of elucidate mine a little bit. I used to many years ago be very much into the whole sort of Games Workshop chaos thing, you know, and the 4 different gods. But with this army, I really wanted to embrace some of the subtlety that I think you can find in Warriors of the Dark Gods. My other armies have all got snow bases, so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go for something of a snow theme, and I'd really like to go for something of a kind of like sort of warrior code type army. You know, you can only get in this army if you've proven yourself. I don't want any barbarians. I don't want any flayers. You only get in if you're a warrior and you've earned your army. And all of this kind of congealed into the sort of notion of super-vikings, if you like. And I started to think along something of a vaguely Norwegian line. Probably partly because in a long time ago in a previous life, I studied various Western European languages. I don't really speak Norwegian, but I kind of have my head a little bit around it in terms of how it works. I can't speak it, but I appreciate it very much. And being a Geordie living in Newcastle upon Tyne, you know, a lot of the Vikings that invaded the British Isles landed around where I live, you know, in Northumberland and Newcastle, around that area. So there's a strong kind of connection. I think sort of there's a shared mentality between Geordies and Vikings in some ways, and actually in the Geordie dialect there's a lot of old Scandinavian words, things like ganut, to go out, you know, there's a very strong link there to Danish in particular. So I was quite keen to do a sort of a Norwegian themed army of super Vikings. I've always been very fond of Chaos Warriors. I just think the models are wonderful. I just thought it'd be really cool to have basically a whole army of them. So thinking along the idea of a sort of Norwegian super Viking theme, I started thinking of the idea of naming each unit, and that quickly led on to the notion of naming each unit as if they were kind of part of a saga or a story. So, you know, they wouldn't be called like the big guys or whatever, I don't know, I can't think of something, but that the unit would be named in a way that was sort of literary, if that's the right word, as if they were being written about, you know, as if like sort of great tales would be told about their deeds, and that the way that the unit was referred to was also the way that they were referred to in a, you know, some epic medieval poem or something like that. So if I move on to the army list, you can see that I've given each unit a Norwegian name with an English translation. Now, if any Norwegian players are watching, please, I absolutely welcome any corrections. I'm hoping that these are all reasonably correct, but obviously, you know, they might not be. I don't really speak Norwegian, so please feel free to chime in on the comments and, you know, tell me what things are wrong. Also, my pronunciation, as I say, I don't really speak Norwegian. do really appreciate the language, and I kind of have my head around how it works, but my pronunciation is probably not very good. So I'll give it my best shot. Feel free to offer suggestions and criticisms, etc. So I have a chosen lord, and his name is, let me have a go at this, Deniken of Galton of Stall. This one knows the riddle of steel. It's obviously a reference to Conan the Barbarian. And when I was looking through the gifts of the dark gods, I thought what would really nicely tie in with a sort of prove yourself as a warrior kind of idea would be to give him greed and entropic aura. So he just simply can't have any armor or weapon enchantments. He's mastered the use of various weapons by surviving long enough to learn to use them better. And when he goes toe to toe with someone, it's like the gift that he has, if you like, is to say, no, you're going to fight me on an even footing and we'll see who's best. And if I lose, I lose. If I beat you, then, I was best. I stuck him on a war dace because, as you see when you come to the model, it was a nice opportunity, but also I like the fact that it basically replaces the warriors that it displaces. So you don't lose the warrior attacks that you displace with the larger base. And I also like the fact that it gives them a better armor save. So it's a kind of way to say, all right, we had one really good suit of armor, and it's not magical. It's just really well made, and that guy gets it because he's the best fighter. I have very limited magic, so I tried to squeeze in what for me were the important items. So he's got the Ledger of Souls, which is great for generating Veil tokens, and he's got the Veilgate Orb, which assists with that. And I had 10 points left, so he got an Ether Icon. The only other character is an Exalted Herald, and what I like is the ongoing question of who is helping whom. Is the demon kind of saying, oh, I'm not going to try and manipulate or anything. I'm just going to help you along. I basically like fighting. I'll help your warriors, and I won't try and interfere with your plans or anything like that. Or is it really that the chosen lord thinks he's got the better end of the deal, whereas actually the demon is just gradually ensnaring his soul? Who knows? It's an ongoing question. And the other reason for putting in the herald was because I had some old demon models sitting on a shelf that I hadn't used for a long time, and I thought it'd be really nice to give them a home. So the herald's name is, again, please tell me if this is wrong, Ikasi Navnesit, do not speak its name. I just like the idea that that's what the warriors would call it. They would call it, do not speak its name. Then on to core, and everything in core is either warriors or fallen. So we have 12 warriors with a standard and a banner of the Relentless Company. They're the smaller warrior unit because they're where the chosen lord goes. I like the idea of the kind of unfavored warriors having to fight alongside the lord, as if he's saying, come with me. If you survive, you might end up favored like those guys over there, leading by example. And also, having that, single-use 15-inch march banner in the unit with the chosen lord is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So this is the one I find hardest to pronounce. So, pass deg for a plutselig vindkast, beware of a sudden gust. Again, trying to describe the unit, that they may not look like much. They're the unfavored unit, the one unfavored unit in the whole army. But, beware a sudden gust. It might be the start of a storm, that sort of thing. Then we have the 18 warriors with envy and full command group, and what I think is compulsory zealots banner. So you get the 2 supporting attacks per model in the second rank. And this was the first unit I named, actually. It was the first name I came up with, Song of the Freezing Wind, Den Friesende Vindens Song. And I thought of that, and I kind of sat back and thought, I really like that. Let's follow the same idea for other units. They have envy, so they get swift stride. They get to re-roll their ones on the charge rolls. So, the Song of the Freezing Wind, it's a wonderful kind of romanticized notion of a fast, icy wind that will just kill you. Next in core is the 5 Fallen. And they are in a real minority here. They're the only 5 warriors with Path of the Exiled in the whole army because... And actually, it was the Fallen that really helped me to sort of evolve the army idea to this point, which was really that the army go to war and they fight to try and sort of become winter, to try and stay on that line where they've absolutely become like the biting wind and the relentless snow and the crushing ice, etc., but without becoming so wrapped up in bloodshed that they just lose themselves. And so the five fallen, rather than have them as, that they were starting to mutate or anything like that, I decided to have them as the guys who they lost themselves. They went into the cold and they became winter. Like they embraced the notion of the warband, if you like, but then they lost themselves on the way. So the gick i kulden og ble vinter. They went into the cold and became winter. Then there's 18 more warriors. These are the guys with greed. I just love greed. Not in real life necessarily, but in this army book, I love greed. I think, just having all of those weapons available is a wonderful thing. It's a bit of a fucker to model, but for me, it's a great thing. It just gives you, all sorts of flexibility on the tabletop. And again, full command group and the compulsory zealots banner. And I put this unit last because their name actually pairs up with the warrior knights, which is the other greed unit. So the 18 warriors of greed are called Ørn og Bjørn, eagle and bear. And the 10 warrior knights with greed are called Klør himmel og jord, which means claws, sky and earth. So eagle and bear, claws, sky and earth. And I was just trying to capture with each of them the idea that they have the sort of the speed and ferocity of the eagle in something like paired weapons, but then they have the kind of the other end, which is just the mass and power and relentlessness of something like the bear. So trying to capture the range of weapons that they have, and the different ways they can fight. Then my favorite units, the 8 chosen with the favor of sloth and great weapons and a champion. I mean, these guys are just wonderful. And their name is Bjørnbritte isen isbrytefjellet, which means bear breaks the ice, ice breaks the mountain. I remember watching a video of a polar bear trying to get through quite thick ice to get to the seals underneath to eat them. And it was just not in a hurry at all. It would just rear up on its hind legs and then just smash down onto the ice. And then it would do it again. And it would do it again. And it was just relentless. And when I was thinking about this unit, I was reminded of that, the idea that when they get to you, they'll just calmly, confidently pound you to bits with their two-handed weapons. They don't care that they're going to fight last. They'll just chop you up. And the ice breaks the mountain bit is the idea that, over a long enough period of time, a glacier can carve through a mountain. So that's the sort of the slow moving bit, if you like. That's the sloth bit. They'll never, ever hurry because you really, really can't kill them. And then when they get to you, they'll just pound you to bits. So there you go. One legendary beast, the one non-humanoid unit, I guess, apart from the Herald, which is a marauding giant with monstrous familiar, because I'm very, very low on magic. And I think you pronounce this Udiret Lar Kriegeren, the beast teaches the warrior. And I like the fact that you can choose something like Glory of Gold, which makes a nearby warrior unit better, as if somehow the beast is then literally teaching the warriors. The warriors are watching the beast and then, learning how to fight better or how to get through armor better or whatever. So there you go. Quickly onto the models. Here's the Chosen Lord. This guy's really built from bits. A lot of skulls and heads because he's got a trophy rack. And he and the Chosen are the only models in the army that aren't painted with the sort of the snow and ice theme, because I wanted to set the Chosen Lord apart. In 40k, I have a massive Iron Warriors army, and I love just very dull metal armor. So that's what he got. Makes him stand out a little bit. And the War Dace thing, giving you back the attacks that you lose by displacing warriors. I thought, well, why not, instead of it being literally a dace, why not it be like a sort of honor guard? So there's two guys there. One's holding the Lord's great weapon, and the other on the other side is holding his banner and his halberd. So it's like a sort of honor guard that follow him around, carrying his weapons for him and picking up the blood. And here he is from the other side. There's the halberd holder with the banner, as you can see. So here are my Herald models, or most of them. I've added another one now, and I've got another one on the way. I liked the idea of having a different model for each pair of manifestations, and it was just a lovely opportunity to kind of dust off some classic old models that I haven't used for a very long time. So on the left there, you've got the classic Be'lakor, the Dark Master model, which was a long, long time ago, was the first time I ever tried using green stuff to make a Nurgle demon prince. And you can sort of see that he's got a real belly going on and some innards coming out. And my proudest moment was I actually gave him a pair of man boobs. So he gets dished out if I want, I think, Brand of the Dragon and Abiding Spirit, for example. In the middle, I used to play 40k Demons a lot, and used to do a lot of battle reports on Warseer when it was still a thing. And this was really the chief demon from whose perspective the battle reports used to be written. It was a Lord of Change. It's the classic Galrauch model. I love the idea of having Galrauch as a Lord of Change, because the dragon itself was possessed by a Lord of Change, and so now it gets used as one of my Herald models. And on the right there, that's actually a recently purchased 3D printed model. I think it's called a Shadowfell Lord. I didn't do a very good job of painting it. It was meant to look like it was a sort of a creature of snow and ice, but it hasn't turned out very well. But never mind. So here we have the Unfavored Warriors, giving you a bit of a first close-up at the general army paint scheme. You can see that the guys at the front, I've actually bothered to finish highlighting them, and the guys further back, I haven't. Now, there are 3 reasons for that, and one of them is that I'm just a lazy fucker, and I did one test model with this kind of lovely sort of, blue up to almost white, sort of icy, snowy theme, and went, oh, that's really nice, but it took so fucking long, there's no way I'm doing 67 of them or whatever it was. The second reason was I thought, well, actually, if the army ethos is about kind of trying to become the sort of ruthlessness of winter, then perhaps the more experienced warriors, that their army would actually start to change color to kind of reflect those sort of wintry colors. So then the guys further back are the less experienced warriors, perhaps. And the third idea, which is, it's really just rationalization, because I'm just a lazy fucker, I couldn't be bothered to finish painting them all. But the third idea was the idea that if you kind of look at them, it's almost like then they're coming out of the dark in a blizzard or something. So you can make out the guys at the front, the guys behind them, more like silhouettes. Either way, I don't think I'm ever going to bother painting the guys behind. I think they're fine as they are. Then we have the Envy Warriors, and because the subtlety was a thing, and I don't for a minute want anybody to think that by sort of saying, oh, I think my army is subtle, that therefore I think that like doing a kind of more traditional sort of chaos type army is a bad thing. Absolutely don't. Like I said, I think what Jimmy Grill has done with his army is stupendous. You really, really should go and have a look. This is just what I decided to do. So I tried to put in little things that would make each unit stand apart a little bit. So the Envy Warriors are the only unit that have these helmets with the tusks, the cheek tusks, and no horns on top. And they're all in the front rank, and hopefully it just kind of makes them look a little bit different from the other units. Then we've got the Fallen, and I'm just going to go back and forth a couple of times to show you that hopefully you can see that the Fallen are just painted a little bit differently. So this is like the standard paint scheme, try and look wintry. And then the Fallen, they're just a little bit bluer. And I've also tried to paint the sort of the tips of the horns and the tips of the weapons and things like that to look like they're actually starting to turn to ice. As if possibly some magical effect is taking place, that a bit like the sort of the Khorne idea, that the Khorne berserkers, they lose themselves to bloodlust, and so then they physically start to change as well. That perhaps these guys losing themselves in becoming winter, just totally losing their own selves, that they then actually physically start to become winter as well. So there you go. And that's the only guy with no helmet, who's obviously got very high blood pressure by the look of it. Then we have the Greed Warriors. Again, you've got the less experienced guys further back, and the price tag you pay for Greed is, of course, you have to find the weapons, and I ended up making a lot of them myself, and it was, well, fun on the one hand, but a bit of a pain in the ass on the other. So a lot of these weapons are scratch built or converted from something else. Then we've got the Warrior Knights, who also have Greed, and again had to make a lot of weapons. I also had to strike a fine line because these guys, the models are wonderfully ornate. I had to make them look cool and gnarly, but not tread on the toes of the chosen. And what to do about that became a bit of a difficult question. Anyway, for the meantime, I've stuck with the paint scheme, and I'm just going to show you a couple more photos just to show you how I sort of approached adding the extra weapons. So you can see some of them on the front there. The champion, for example, has got a great big, you probably can't see in his right hand, he's got a halberd. His left hand, he's got a great big spiked club thing, two-handed. The guy, as you look at it on the right, has got a sort of two-handed glaive. Then if you look on the left, you can see that each knight has a sort of weapons bag, just very basic green stuffing. I'm not very good at modeling, with some extra weapons stuck in to try and imply that they are either paired weapons or that there's like a two-handed sword in there, or perhaps a halberd, so that hopefully each model has enough weapons that could conceivably make up what they should have. And then one from the other side as well. There you go. And the chosen. So I'd always kind of, which I feel a bit ashamed of, I'd always, in the past, had always scoffed at armies where people used the standard Chaos Warrior models as chosen, because I always thought, that's just, you didn't want to pay for chosen models. And I feel ashamed of saying that, actually, because it's not a very nice thing to think. And I originally bought a set of miniatures on eBay that looked fantastic until they arrived, and they were actually a smaller scale. So even though they looked like, your kind of elite seasoned warriors, they were shorter than everybody else and slimmer than everybody else, and so it just didn't work. So I was thinking about what on earth to do, and as it happened, I ended up rewatching one of the old John Carpenter Halloween films, and I remembered watching the first Halloween film when I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, being scared stiff back in the 80s. And what terrified me about Michael Myers was that he never hurried, he never ran. You rarely saw him walking even. Any bullets that were fired at him, you could never even see if they'd either hit or injured him. And he never spoke. He was just this silent, implacable, relentless thing that just would not stop, and it was unstoppable. And I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So I actually went back on my terrible criticism of other people's armies and thought, you know what, I'm going to make Chaos Warrior models. And I'm just going to make them look different. I want them to look like the warriors who just became so good, and that ties in with getting the favor of Sloth as well, that they just don't care. And I've done the same thing as the Chosen Lords. I've given them the lovely, I think I really like it, the dull metal armor to make, to really make them stand out as that these are the elite guys that get the best armor, if you like. And then I set about giving them Chaos Knight helmets to make them look different from the warriors, Chaos Knight lances, sort of trimmed and fiddled with a bit to be their great weapons. And then I thought, I'm going to put dents and chops and holes and snapped off arrow shafts and all sorts of stuff in their armor and their helmets, just to show that they just no longer care. You can fire arrows at them and they'll just keep walking towards you. You can shoot them, they just don't care. And then when they get to you, like the polar bear in the ice, they'll just pound through you. So there you go, there's the Chosen. And the last shot is the giant. It's a count-says giant, obviously, because it's a sort of dragon. One of the things I really liked about Jimmy Grill's thread was that he's a man after my own heart in terms of thinking of model kits as sort of spare parts. I'm not as good at scratch building as he is by any stretch of the imagination, but I do love it. This is actually half of a Games Workshop kit. I got the kit and I thought, I reckon I can make 2 monsters out of this. So I'm quite pleased with this dragon. It does need some green stuff around the neck just to finish it off, but for the time being, I think it's fine. It's got a nice dead mantic elf on the ground there. So that's the counts as Marauding Giant with Monstrous Familiar. So there you go. There's the army lined up, ready to do battle. Thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. And our next video will be this army in battle against Dangle's Dwarven Holt's army. Hope you enjoy it. See you then. Bye.